Su Qing's novella The Beauty on the Crossroad. Original text 9. Lifelong mistakes. After a few days, my mother thought that Song Wenqing was about to get a reply, and she became even more uneasy. The first thought was to get rid of him. My second daughter is still young and needs to study hard. She thought that as long as girls today can be independent, they can never marry, so as not to be angry with men in the future. But what if you can't afford the tuition? My sister is about to graduate from high school, and she needs money to go to college. Even if she does get admitted to National Capital University, the cheapest tuition fee will still be 10 yuan, dormitory fee is 6 yuan, book fee is 5 yuan in advance, and there is also pocket money for meals. It was all her fault. She didn't dare to think about it anymore. She can't even pay for one daughter. How can she take care of the second one? However, I have only graduated from high school and I am still only 15 years old. If I am not married and cannot continue my studies, where will I be able to be independent in the future? Thinking of this, my mother's heart froze. She sighed and shed tears. There was nothing she could do after thinking about it alone. Although I pretended not to know, I still prepared my daily homework, but I was also depressed. My sister seemed to be concerned about this matter, but she couldn't speak out because Chang chose me instead of her, which hurt her self-esteem. She just wanted to dissuade him, but also wanted to avoid suspicion and couldn't speak out. So she remained silent and said nothing. As a result, Song Wenqing's matchmaker finally succeeded, and they were discussing how to hold the ceremony. First, Song Wenqing brought a big red list with various gifts, such as dragon and phoenix golden dumplings, wedding cakes, cans of wine, etc. In addition, there are 2 pieces of small jewelry and 4 pieces of damask clothing, all of which Mr. Mingjai proposed to discount, saying that the money can be deposited in his bank and the interest will be increased to prepare for the emergency needs of the second lady. My mother's ears turned red after hearing these words. She seemed to be accepting charity from others. Didn't the so-called emergency needs refer to the expenses for my education? She hates it. She hated that my father died prematurely and unreasonably. As a result, not only did he not leave any money for her, but even the clothes and coffin boards he left behind were all dug out of her hard-earned savings. She regretted that she should not have sold her jewelry to help her husband study, but now she had to rely on others to help her daughter with her studies. Thinking of this, she couldn't help but shed tears. Song Wenqing misunderstood and thought she was worried about not having enough money to study. So he smiled and comforted her. Mrs. Zhang, don't worry. Our boss is very generous. Since he values the second young lady, he must cultivate her. In the future I can persuade him to hire him earlier and with a higher salary. Can't your second lady graduate from college? These small gifts are nothing. Let's make a deal with you today. Well, I will go and reply so that our boss can choose a date to send the money over earlier. The mother's eyes were red and she quickly said, No, Mr. Song. She seemed to feel that she was betraying her daughter, selling her young daughter at a cheap price. And the gift note on red paper was the evidence of the stolen goods. So she didn't even want to look at it anymore. She tightened it and stuffed it back into Song Wenqing's hand and said, That's it. It's up to you to make the decision. What your boss decides will never be wrong. Song Wenqing knew that it was done. Then he went back to resume his life with a smile. I can't tell you how insulted I felt. I hate the way Song Wenqing pretends to be respectful, but secretly sneers at my greatness. He keeps saying, money, study. Did he take out the money? And I also hate Mr. Mingjai's hypocrisy. These small gifts should have been given according to the rules of the time. It is our freedom whether we use it for tuition or to buy clothes, materials, and accessories, but he used the money we deserved. 2 favors are his extra gifts. What a shrewd calculation. Although I was still a child at that time and I didn't understand the business threshold, I knew it was humiliation, an embarrassing humiliation. The day of the engagement finally arrived. In the past few days, my mother had been busy doing this and that, cleaning everything inside and outside the house. She was reluctant to hire anyone to help her. She just made her hands covered with dust and sweat poured down her forehead. We felt really sorry to see her, and her sister had said to her over and over again, Mom, please take a rest for a while, and I will help you clean the windows. The mother remained silent and glanced at her, as if she was not willing yet. But after all, She was too exhausted to support it anymore, so she had to wash the rag and give it to her sister to try it out. Unexpectedly, when her sister pointed to the second piece of glass, she took the rag back from her hand and started again. "Wash it and wipe it yourself." And she wiped all the two pieces that my sister had just wiped again. I looked at them from the side and felt very uneasy, but I couldn't say anything, because what they were busy with now was my happy event, and I couldn't stop it, let alone participate in it. The wedding cakes and golden dumplings sent by the Huang family were all of the highest quality, and my mother felt very honored, in front of only a few congratulators. In fact, their businessmen are very shrewd in their hairdressing business. For 8 yuan, they can buy better products than we can for 10 yuan. Moreover, there are many clerks in their store, and Mr. Mingjai sends out whatever he wants. Everyone wants to curry favor with the boss, so how dare they not try their best? Even if Mr. Mingjai had something he couldn't think of, they would all be attentive and considerate to him. Only my mother had to make everything by herself. Her health was not good and her brain was not working well. She bought something like this, and then forgot to buy it. In this way, I couldn't get busy walking in and out, and I couldn't bear to spend the money on transportation. In the end, just to buy a pot of Diefenbachia, I don't know how much energy was expended. In order to rush for the wedding in a tight financial situation, she also sold the 2 toe balls that she planned to use for her own burial in the future. Not only did she not gain a cent from a wealthy family, but on the contrary, she wanted to cooperate with him. We had to scrape together a sizable return gift for the things they sent. Mother knew that businessmen were very discerning and would always judge those who weighed the most. In the future, I would like to become his wife and spend the rest of my life with them. My mother had to support some scenes for me, but it was said that that day Song Wenxing came in with 8 large carrying boxes painted in vermilion and gold, with velvet flowers on them like stars. Everyone watching the excitement along the way admired them with admiration. A smile couldn't help but appear on the mother's face. Although her spirit had been unable to hold on for the past few days, she still smiled vigorously, almost to tears. The so-called several hundred yuan for jewelry and clothing materials was a check issued by Yuantai Bank, sealed in a big red paper bag. Song Wenxing opened the paper bag in front of her and showed it to her mother. Her mother took it in embarrassedly, opened the cupboard a few times, put these carefully into the drawer, and then locked the cupboard door again. After locking it, she was still uneasy, so she tried pulling the cupboard door again, but of course it wouldn't open. She knew it was indeed locked securely, so she felt relieved and went out. She put the money through Yuantai Bank every few days to earn a larger interest, and Mr. Mingjai gave her a bank book as proof. She didn't want to go to Yuantai Bank more often, and pointed out that Shaokai's mother-in-law was here, so she never went to get the money. In this way, the bank book was later made and set up for me. Mr. Mingjai might have already expected this move, so you made this suggestion, right? Poor us orphans and widows cannot beat his plan, and we still can't get some protection. As a result, when I was a freshman in high school, I unexpectedly received a subsidy for poor children. For this, I was very busy filling out questionnaires and looking for insurance. My sister is studying at Capital University and there is hope for free tuition next semester. Only Cheng, who failed the graduation exam and had to repeat a year, is still studying in the 3rd year of high school at the same school. He seemed to be very dissatisfied with the fact that I received the subsidy. He thought it was dishonorable to add the word poor to his fiancée. Fortunately, Mr. Mingjai explained that money is money after all. As long as the school is willing to subsidize, what does it matter whether you are poor or not? Soon, the September 18th incident happened, so the men organized a student army and the women organized a rescue team. The entire school established a battalion, with the military training instructor as the battalion commander and the female physical education teacher as the rescue captain. The ambulance team lacked medicines, bandages, patient beds, etc., so students started to raise funds. Because Cheng had this ability, he gradually became valued by the school. Students, both male and female, wear gray military uniforms and gray hats. Cheng was the most unwilling to abide by the rules on this point. When we gathered for morning exercises every day, we would often find him still wearing a light gray suit and a floral silk tie. This was very eye-catching in a team of 500 to 600 people. I was deeply ashamed, but he was very proud of himself. The military training instructor had warned him several times. He finally managed to put on a gray cloth jacket with a few Parker pens in his pockets. He still wore brown trousers, evergreen to express distinction. When the instructor asked him, he replied that it was stained with mud on the field during yesterday's practice, and it was handed over to the dyeing shop for ironing, so he had to wear this first. The instructor often needed his father's help when the school was raising funds. I won't say any more. He finally put on the triangle belt and forced the female classmates to salute him with a playful smile. "Xiao Mei, look how bad your finance is," a female classmate said to me. Is it Huang Cheng? He pointed his gun at me yesterday and said he was going to aim at me. Indeed, another person also came up. Probably what Cheng was aiming at was the part she was embarrassed to say. So her face suddenly turned red. I hung my head and was speechless after hearing this, as if countless sharp knives were stabbing me in my heart. From then on, I no longer talked much with other female classmates, and I only immersed myself in editing National Salvation Weekly. Because I was the standing committee member and propaganda director of the student union, I was responsible for this job. Soon the school launched a fundraiser to save the country. Cheng once met me on the road and said to me accusingly, "Xiao Mei, why don't you even give out some consolation gifts? If all our classmates in the school were like you, wouldn't they be far behind in the competition?" Fortunately, I supported the situation for them. Before he could finish, I sneered and replied, "I know you have donated a lot of money, but we are poor, so we have to contribute our labor to the country." Cheng hurriedly argued, "Who asked you to dig into your own pocket? Why don't you go to the homes of relatives and friends to collect donations?" I turned around and walked away and ignored him, thinking to myself, "Your family is my relative. Then please donate more money for us." My mother seemed to have expected this situation. One day, she solemnly took out 4 yuan and handed it to me and said, "Xiao Mei, I heard that everyone in your school is collecting donations. I want to donate these for you and to let them go." I shook my head and said, "No, Mom, being patriotic doesn't necessarily mean donating money. We can also promote it." My mother said, "I'm not doing this just for patriotism. I'm afraid you don't have money. It's embarrassing to give it to them. Besides, Cheng is also in the same school as you, so he must have donated a lot." But I still refused to take it. Later, after the fundraising was over, the school announced the names of those who had donated by themselves or had raised more funds. Cheng also received a certificate for this. I couldn't help but secretly feel sorry for myself. This is unfair, I thought to myself. Rich people get whatever they want. Cheng just asked his father to donate some money on his behalf, and then he got the certificate. Is this a reward for his patriotic enthusiasm? Or is it to reward him for having a rich father? However, in the spring of the next year, National Salvation Weekly also ceased operations. Donations were mostly casual, and the popularity of people's hearts cooled down from being forced to automatically. I worked in vain for several months and got nothing. I had no choice but to cherish my hard work and publish a few issues of National Salvation Weekly. Cheng didn't regret spending the money, because he didn't care about money. He only showed off his certificate. The only thing that made him unhappy was that the school had made the homework heavier, and the Ministry of Education also announced that it would hold a national examination. This was a big blow to the students who were enthusiastic about the patriotic movement. They hated the school for going back on its word and originally told them to study without forgetting to save the country. And now they are asked to never forget to study in order to save the country, causing them to give publicity speeches in vain for several months. Cheng had failed once before, so he had to work extra hard this time, and he finally managed to pass the HKCE. Our wedding date was chosen to be held in July of the same year, because Cheng had already passed the political science department of Shanghai Human University. Mr. Mingjai knew that there were many voluptuous women in Shanghai, and he was afraid that his son would be fascinated, so he changed his mind. Marry a wife early. I was only 16 years old at that time, and he was only a 21-year-old young man. Of course I cried and refused at first, but my mother said, "What's going on? Since you've been promised to his family, you're a member of his family. If you want to marry him, you have to marry him." Otherwise, I'll be your mother. Do you still have the nerve to meet someone? Son, I regret this too, but there is no other way now. Fortunately, you can just marry him and continue studying. So I got on the sedan in embarrassment and soon dropped out of school because I was pregnant.
Alright, this part of the story ends here.
Want to know what happened next? Let's listen to the breakdown next time.